March 4th, 2026. Welcome back. We are live. Welcome back to the GFR, Surviving and Thriving the Transition. GFR, Global Financial Reset, of course. Joining me today are returning guests Will Barney and Brandon Clarke. We've got a great show lined up. So much happened between last week and this week in the world of economics. So we're going to tackle that. And as always, action-oriented. There's 3 specific action items, actually 4, that we will conclude with later in this broadcast. So stick around for that because action changes things. All right. Disclosing, I'm going to kick this off with a bit of a monologue surrounding the work of Nikola Tesla, and then we're going to bring our esteemed guests in. Disclosing the energy scam. Actually, hold on. Thank you for my producer reminding me of the announcement. Derek Johnson, Thursday, March 26th at 8 p.m. Eastern. You want to get your questions answered? Derek's there for 1 solid hour with the sole purpose to answer your questions. I'll be on screen too in this private room as your host. We launched this initially, Patriot Q&A Power Hour for premium members at JMC Broadcasting with Will Barney, and it was a huge success. Thank you, Will. Our second month was Michael Jaco. Again, another well-attended and valuable session. And thirdly, as we state here now, Derek Johnson joins us March 26th. Visit jmcbroadcasting.com. Click on Premium Membership to learn about the premium benefits, which includes Patriot Q&A Hour, or visit our free subscription tab on the upper right. But do come and join us. Very important. You can get your questions answered, and every question will be answered. The one, well attended as they are, we can't get to all the questions in the hour. We start on time, we end on time. But when that hour concludes, any of the unanswered questions within a week are emailed to you. So your questions will be answered. So thanks for following and joining us. All right. Disclosing the energy scam. Why Tesla's free energy was hidden and how QFS unlocks it. Pardon me, folks. The idea that energy must be paid for has bound the world for more than a century. It is necessary to extract, met, and tax power, fuel, and electricity. However, this was a carefully constructed illusion designed to enrich a global elite and enslave humanity under a system of artificial scarcity. It was never the reality. The reality? For many years, there has been free energy. It was discovered by, of course, Nikola Tesla. He showed how to transmit an infinite amount of power wirelessly back then using the Earth's electromagnetic field. The planet could have been powered by his Wardenclyffe Tower in a clean, limitless, and unrestricted manner. However, this gentleman, J.P. Morgan, and the banking syndicate shut everything down as soon as they realized there would be no meter. They stole Tesla's patents, defamed him, and substituted an oil-based dystopia for the future. The energy was under the control of the same banks that controlled the money. How cozy. Energy crises, oil wars, and climate hysteria were never about supply. They had to do with the C word, control. That control, thank goodness, in this great awakening, in the restructure of everything, is now crumbling. So we are not only witnessing the demise of fiat with the activation of the quantum financial system, but also the resurgence of Tesla's suppressed inventions, plural. Declassification and restoration of hidden patents, which have been classified as, quote, national security for decades, are now underway. Currently, the Space Force has more than 5,000 classified energy patents under GSARA law, including systems with zero-point energy, batteries with quantum resonance, drives with magnetic propulsion, harvesters of atmospheric energy. These are not hypotheses. They are genuine. For years, they have fueled black budget initiatives. Additionally, they are being incorporated into a decentralized energy network that will do the following: get grid of electricity bills, permanently. Get rid of, not get rid, get rid out of here. Get rid of electricity bills permanently. Eliminate reliance on fuel. Use clean wireless energy to power cities and homes. Sorry, John Kerry. Make economies dependent on fossil fuels to become obsolete. All right, so why was this hidden? I think you can understand. But because freedom is equal to energy independence, because you cannot be enslaved by businesses or governments if you can power your house, car, and technology without paying a bill. For this reason, under Nisara Gasara, the public will have access to energy patents. New grids powered by Tesla will be constructed worldwide. Under a lawful transition, utility companies will be nationalized or dismantled. Every home will receive a free upgrade to quantum Tesla nodes. It's not a dream. The restructuring mandates included. Every nation that complies with Gasara protocols is required by contract to break up the oil-based monopoly and give its citizens access to technology that has been suppressed. Solar panels and wind farms are not the way of the future. Limitless quantum flow, scalar wave amplifiers, and Tesla towers, there's your future. Your enslavement was never intended to be paid for by you. Now, the people literally have more power. Remain vigilant, keep an eye on the grid, keep an eye on these broadcasts. The sign will be the blackout. The world will be forever altered by what comes back with the light. All right. Quick disclaimer before we bring on Will Barney. The information provided by me and my guests in this program each and every week is for educational purposes only and is not to be considered a specific investment nor tax or legal advice. You are encouraged to do your own research and consult your financial, legal, and tax professionals. What we do here is we shake the trees a bit. We upset the apple cart because that old system is being transitioned out as a new one's going to be transitioned in. So do your own homework, and a helpful tool for you, pardon me, is to visit wealthcoachuniversity.com. Click on, you scroll down, you see a little blue tab, Advisor Scorecard. That'll help you navigate through the storm of professionals. All right, it's a good tool. Having said that, we're bringing back Will Barney. Will Barney brings over 19 years of experience in the banking sector, where he has developed a strong specialization in structuring funding for commercial projects on a global scale. You can learn more about Will by visiting jmcbroadcasting.com. On the upper left-hand corner of the nav bar is contributors. You'll see the various valued contributors on all the programs I publish and produce here, as well, and Will Barney's picture, biography, and link to his website, enochgs.com, is there for you to learn more. Please welcome back, always a great guest, always filled with powerful insights and information, Mr. Will Barney.
Thank you for having me again, John. So good to be with you.
Thanks for being here. Always comfortable for me having you in the seat, because you always deliver the goods. I learn something all the time listening to you, and I know our audience does. So thank you. I've got a lot to unpack here, and I'm sure you do too. Any quick comments, if any, on the Tesla narrative before I launch into this?
Yes. Our entire energy system is being shifted. You know, a friend of mine, Reed Hewish, CEO of zpower.com, has been working for 10 years to bring 0-point energy to the world. It looks like they will be making deliveries by the early next year. If you can imagine a box the size of a carry-on suitcase, putting out 10,000 watts continuously, then you can understand what this is. And it's incredible. It is based off of Tesla's original writings. It took years to figure out exactly how he did it, because a lot of the information was not available. but they did figure it out, and it is amazing. So you have a device with various panels inside of it, and they simply collect the energy that's in the air all around us, and it sends it down the wire. And so it works day, it works night, it works 200 feet below the earth in a mine shaft, and it's just continuous power and credible
Excellent.
things that are coming forward. So we're gonna start seeing this type of power installations over the next 12 to 24 months, going into various facilities. So it's going to be quite exciting, as this kind of technology was held back for a long time. Westinghouse and J.P. Morgan both wanted meters. That is ultimately what happened because they had the power. And ultimately, we've all paid the price for a very long time. So I don't know how the transition goes exactly. I think you're going to have, even if you did have some naturalization of some of the power companies, there's still going to have to be some money paid just to keep up the lines that are currently existing, the existing grid, until its replacement arrives. But if you can imagine not having any wires, you wouldn't have to worry about storms taking down telephone poles and all this crazy stuff, right? That interrupt with
You know,
everybody's power every time you have a bad storm. So great, awesome
mhm.
things are coming in our future. I'm excited about it.
You bet. Me too. We all just need to be patient. Changing every aspect of life and living on planet Earth isn't going to happen on the flip of a switch. But I want to comment. I used to live in Sarasota, Florida, and I had about a 4,000 square foot home, which was also a studio in there. We used it for business as well as a home, and I had a heated swimming pool because it gets cold in some nights in the winter months of Florida. And between running the heat for the pool and the pool itself, and a 4,000 square foot house is a sizable house, at least for me. And and I'm spoiled American. I want it cold, and Florida's hot, so I had the AC running all the time. And I remember bills 350 to four high almost 500 a month, and we had hurricanes, just speaking to your point about wires, coming down and all these issues. It's nice to know that over time, those type of things will be eliminated. And you mentioned meters. Of course, we're not going to get into that in this broadcast, but I know a lot of people are thinking about, so I'll throw it out there. Smart meters, of course, have another element of danger that we've all had to endure, those with smart meters. But let's jump into Iran. Concerning Iran, I'm going to set it up here. What are your views of the current ongoing operation in Iran? Here, and I mentioned this here in Thailand, and I'm sure there are stories certainly in the Middle Eastern countries, which is a stone's throw from where I am. Uh, we have our stories in many countries right now as a result of Iran, and I think this will be a little further widespread because of the Straits of Hormuz that can't get the oil through right now for the world. So here in Thailand, we have now less than 60 days of oil reserves. Many of the flights in and out of Thailand have transfer points, and I know because I've flown back and forth here many times for many, many years. Many of the transfer points, not all, but many are through Middle Eastern countries. And that, of course, depends on what country you're flying from to get here. So the Thai government is trying to get its citizens and overseas workers out of the Middle East pronto and sent back home to Thailand, and are even assisting in that process. The international airport at Bangkok, the images I've seen, at least on digital news, it's just like it's packed. It's like a sports arena just filled with people trying to attend. So the airports are a bit disrupted. Tourists, people here on a tourist visa that have now uh, can't necessarily get out because of the transfer points and are being delayed. Thai government, as I understand from looking at the digital news feeds, are providing cash to some people to give visa extensions for overstays. These are the little trickle down things that happen, and this is nothing compared to the poor innocent people that are becoming what people call collateral damage as bombs drop. But that's war. But people are lining up at gas stations here now, filling their tanks. The Thai government has floated the idea of getting oil from America, U.S. as well as from Africa, as I understand it to be. So I just threw that out there, but that's the present impact over here in Southeast Asia, in Thailand, where I presently reside. Um, and of course, we have President Trump changing gears a bit on this, changing trade policy with Spain as a result of all this. So I know a long-winded setup, but what are your views of the current ongoing operation in Iran, from resetting of the world dynamic, because there's a lot attached to this move, as well as the economic impact presently and long term?
Well, there's a lot in that, and I want to give a bit of a 50,000 foot view on kind of multiple things going on at the same time, because you need to look a little deeper than the surface. Okay. So as we look at what's happened over the last 60 days, we've had the Venezuelan conflict, and that was over very rapidly. The week before Iran, we suddenly had this war break out with the cartels in Mexico. And 10 days before that, the Mexican Senate approved unanimously to let the U.S. Special Forces come into the country to do, shall we say, training operations, okay, to do training with Mexico. Well, they came in, and 10 days later, we have the cartels going down. Now we're seeing what's going on in Iran. Soon we're going to see Cuba. What do all of these countries have in common? A lot of people don't understand this, but what they have in common is this. The leaders that run them are not the leaders. They are the puppets. And they're actually run and controlled by deep state agencies. MI6, CIA, Mossad, etc. Okay? They've been running controlled opposition in many of these countries, and you can add North Korea to the list as well. So what you're seeing is a takedown military style that is ending the cabal's reign of terror. And Iran was the local issue there for this week in terms of the Middle East. But we had some interesting reaction to the U.S. taking care of the Iran situation. And that reaction came out of Spain, and it came out of the U.K. And Spain says, you know what? We're not going to let you use any of our bases. You can't land your planes here. Okay. That was the first thing. Then the UK jumps in, and they do something too. Now, this was more subtle. What happened is you had Lloyd's of London out of the UK cancel all of the insurance contracts on all these vessels in the Straits of Hormuz.
Wow.
This meant that everyone moving their oil reserves no longer had insurance. The shutdown wasn't occurring because of Iran. The shutdown was occurring because of the lack of insurance policies on the vessels. So Trump stepped up within the last 24 hours and put together a backup insurance plan to insure all the boats there, and even give them Navy escort by the U.S. Navy through the Straits of Hormuz. Wow. He was going to make sure there was no disruption to oil deliveries and energy. So this is big. Now, why is this important? Why do you need to take a bigger view of this? It's because the agencies, the dark side of the agencies, I was going to put it that way, have been running these controlled opposition projects for some time. You had the three-letter agency down in Venezuela. They were deeply embedded in there for a very long time. Okay. If people think that the cartels are running Mexico, they don't understand. The agencies run the cartels who run Mexico.
Absolutely.
Okay. There's a hierarchy to that. And so it's all about taking these intelligence agencies have used their intelligence as a means of control to really put the screws to the whole world, and to create enough disruption that they can get their things accomplished that they want to do. And deeply underneath that, you have the human trafficking element, which is a whole nother story. Okay.
Yes.
So all of these particular agencies, we call them, are running these black ops, drug running operations so that they could raise money in a way that doesn't belong in the public sphere. In other words, they want to have money to carry out whatever operations they want to. And they don't want to have to account to a taxpayer in any country. Because if they have to say why they need another $10 billion, now they have to go and explain themselves. They'd rather have these side things going on, drug running, trafficking, all the other things that's going on. And they do that underneath these rogue countries, okay? So that's the bigger story of what's really happening. So as we look at Iran, this is why there was a couple things that occurred in the last 48 hours. One of them was the leader was taken out and the initial government was taken out. Secondarily, what we had was a replacement leadership was put in place, and then they were taken out. Why? Because President Trump is not going to allow the same control grid that's running these countries to continue to run these countries. It's going to all be changed. And so that's what you're watching play out right now. Expect to see Cuba on the agenda very soon. I do think there's going to be something done in the Koreas in that situation. All of this is about liberating the world from the hegemony of what's been the cabal control grid. And it's deeply tied to the bankers and the central banks and the whole bit, right? They literally took control of everything: finance, education, healthcare, all of it, right? So now we're in this situation where the war is for the whole world, is for all the marbles, and everybody wants to survive this and land on the other side with actual freedom where we can prosper again. Because the lack that has been pushed upon the world, telling them there's only so much and you got to walk over your neighbor to get that extra $100 or you're not going to survive, is ridiculous. This planet is abundant beyond all reason, and it's only been evil people trying to convince you there's lack. And as we take down that control grid, now we can get to a place where we can begin to prosper as a people across the entire world. So there's a bigger story that's continually playing out. And the UK played its part in trying to push back against Trump, just like Spain tried to push back. And look what's happening. You have leadership in the UK that's beginning to fall. And they're falling. Why? Because of connections to Epstein. But that's just the beginning. There's going to be more of this go on. In the last 24 hours, Putin has put out a video. It's a discussion with a journalist. And he talked about, he may have to cut off all the energy going to the European nations. Okay. What does this do? That puts them into another tight spot. What's happening is you have all of these leaders around the world of various nations that are being taken out, cabal's being eliminated, and they're retreating to their base of operations. And where is that? It's primarily Ukraine and Europe. And that doesn't even talk about the situation in Israel, which is another thing I don't want to get into today.
Yes, that's a
all
whole
of this is
whole
about,
episode.
Right. So we have a larger operation going on here than people realize. And what you're watching is going to be the dismantling of all this control grid. I do expect most of the heavy militarized, shall we say, operations. They're trying to get this done within the first 3 months of the year. So we're 2 months into the first quarter. We've got a little bit of March left. We'll see what they can get done within the rest of March. But they want to get it done within the first quarter because they need the second quarter to set up the reset. Okay. So they want to get past this military stuff first.
Yeah. Well said. Connect the 50,000-foot view, pedaling back to your opening line, connecting the dots on these rogue nations, CIA run for decades. You've nailed it. And I would concur with Cuba, as you stated, and probably lastly will be, last is Israel, but last is second to last, it will probably be North Korea. It would be my guess. But that's exactly, I believe what you just stated is exactly what is happening. And thanks for putting that down here. Now let's talk about briefly the State of the Union. Trump opens up with Golden Age and bookended the State of the Union with Golden Age. He made a statement towards the latter part of the State of the Union And he said, I'm paraphrasing, I don't have the quotes in front of me, but those that watch it will remember this. He basically was talking about the huge financial burden we've endured uh, because of the income tax, of which he says we no longer need. Now, he put that out at the State of the Union. We've been following those lines of comments from the president and his administration for a year, but now he did it at the State of the Union. And then he concluded by saying, I'm going to unburden the financial burdens of the American people, the people I love. And that is an extraordinary statement, especially coming in the State of the Union. Then Dan Scavino posted a, the next day, I think it was, abolish the IRS. Timing. So, what were some of the takeaways that had an impact on you, Will, at the State of the Union?
There were several key takeaways that I took from that. So I'll list a few of them for you. First off, you almost could have heard a pin drop for a second before the clapping started when he said the income tax would be done away with, that tariffs would replace it. And we saw that. I think the biggest thing that was on display for the world to see, because there was more than America watching this, was the fact that the Democrats stayed seated for almost every good thing he talked about. And for the people that had been through horrendous things, even for the children, for veterans, they stayed seated. That was a visual. And I think that whether that was scripted or intentional, that he just led them into the trap, is hard to say, but it had the same effect regardless. And the effect was for everybody to see that when he announced this statement, stand if you agree with this statement, that the first purpose and responsibility of government is to protect the American people over illegal aliens. Of course, all the Republicans stand, the Democrats sit there, except for one. I believe that John Fetterman out of Pennsylvania stood. I think he's the only Democrat that stood. It was shocking.
He's an interesting
and it just went on and on for some time.
Character in this in the show. He's an interesting character in the show. Sorry, I had to throw that in there. Fetterman. That's an interesting observation.
He is. John Fetterman was. We all wondered how he got there in the first place, and then the guy has a medical condition, ends up in the hospital for several days. Which he eventually comes out of. During that time, his wife and kids flee to Canada. We believe that passed away, and we have Fetterman 2.0 now, which seems to be very pro-Trump, which is amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. Hey,
so
we got an Elon Musk 2.0. We might as well have a Fetterman. I want to pedal back, Will, real quick,
sure,
because I don't want this to slip away. When you highlighted the UK and Spain and their reactions against the motions of our administration concerning Iran. I mean, that's like art of war stuff. We're getting a nice little bang for our buck because they're exposed. And the same thing with the Democrats, as you just stated, the Supreme Court judges and others on that side of the aisle at the State of the Union who don't stand, to acknowledge the grieving parents of children that were taken by illegals, or the hero who flew the chopper, if you will. I don't know the name of the helicopter in the rescue mission, not rescue, in the Maduro operation. There's that guy who can barely stand with bullets in his legs, and they don't stand for him. It was such a great display. The optics of that was enormous and well planned out, in my opinion. And to your point, scripted or not, matters not. We got the same benefit. Let's talk about the following markets. I'm going to list a few things out. While some perhaps may be somewhat difficult to gauge, and I understand that due to the enormity and unknowns in this reset transition. But what's your take? We'll start with real estate and mortgages. And again, I know it's hard to have a definitive answer to these things, but in the vicinity of, what's your take on real estate and mortgages now and in the foreseeable future as an asset class for people that have money and are looking to redirect things? Should they be buying real estate, homeowners, or refinancing? What's going on? What's your views of real estate and mortgage right now and in the foreseeable future?
Well, what we have is we have tactics that are being played out by the administration to not necessarily deflate values of real estate. Trump doesn't want to crash it, but he wants to make it more accessible to everyone. Okay. So he's looking for stability. Real estate's gone up dramatically. The last 5 years, everything's up probably, 35%. I mean, it's crazy. He doesn't want to see it keep going on that trajectory. He wants to kind of put a cap on it, but at the same time, he wants to make it accessible for everybody. But as you look at investment strategy, all of the big corporations just got kneecapped who were buying up homes at epic levels. I mean, thousands of homes, and then renting them back out. And that's because Trump wants the homes to be occupied by families, right? Not by corporations. Certainly the ownership of it. So he put out an executive order that kind of kneecapped. So now what you see happening is a lot of these corporations are now dumping these homes. And this is holding prices from an escalation point. It's kind of holding it back. We also had his moves just 6 weeks ago to purchase large amounts of mortgage-backed bonds for Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac to purchase these, which brought more stability into the market and lowered rates. And so that was to try to bring rates down where families could afford the homes. So ultimately, I think if you look at real estate as an asset class, traditionally it's always been a great safety net, a place to hold value, and it's not going to necessarily lose value, but it's going to hold for the long term. May not gain all that much depending on the market you're in, but you're not going to really lose anything traditionally over real estate. And I think he's trying to make sure that it stays that way, that it stays something consistent. And his policies certainly indicate that.
Thank you. You mentioned bonds. I'm going to sound like a broken record, but oftentimes we have new people joining us. So for the benefit of them, 107, who's Juan, will go to my website, hit contributors, read his bio, and follow 107. But most of our audience knows who Juan is. 107 is well on the record, as is Jamie Dimon, about the bond situation, which we've discussed here, the treasuries that are held by Japan and China, offloading these, and great concerns in the municipal bond area. What's your take, taking your temperature, if you will, on bonds, taking the temperature on bonds? Break them down. You got municipal bonds, corporate bonds, government bonds. You have longer term. You got the T-bill, shorter term. The bond sector broken down into, say, those three main categories. What's your comments about these? What's your level of concern? And the reason I raise this, it's very important because a lot of folks that do have investable assets, that are working in the vanilla Wall Street brokerage world system still, they design the portfolios, as you well know, particularly folks a little bit advanced in age, to take the volatility out of and risk out of being too heavily weighted in stocks. They bring in a bond portfolio. They call it fixed income securities and all this sort of a thing. What's your concern, if any, on municipal bonds, corporate and government bonds at this time and moving forward?
There is always volatility anytime there's military action underway. And let's start at the top. I'm going to start at the federal level first. Anytime that you have military activity, there's always a bit of volatility to that. People don't like the unknowns of what war could be. And you can have some people getting skittish. However, there's not very many that are actually trying to bet against the United States at this point, because of the strength of the country, economically and militarily. If you're gonna back something, you better back something that you think is going to survive. And right now, it looks like they're the ones that are going to survive. Okay, so there's not, even though there's been some unloading of treasuries with countries saying, "Oh, we don't always agree that the U.S. is going into these countries." We're not going into take over countries. The United States isn't trying to take over Venezuela and all these different countries just for the sake of doing so. This is about what's controlling those countries. That is the real poison, okay? And that's why I explained the larger view of this. So it's important as we look at those trajectories. federally, yeah, T-bills might take some slight hit, but I don't think that's going to hurt people very much. Now let's move down to some of the other stuff like municipal bonds and
Yes.
corporate bonds.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different story when you get into the municipal area. There's been a lot of cities, counties, states that have borrowed money at epic levels, most of it trying to prop up the Green New Scam and a lot of these other nonsense projects. Okay. Or they're trying to keep their budgets going for their health care and Medicaid and everything else. It was a good example of this is Minnesota. There's been a lot of fraud exposed in Minnesota recently. So what does this mean? It means that there's been a number of people who've been asked to come and sit in hearings on the Hill to explain themselves and what's going on. And one of those was Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota. And he was asked about, and this is just one example, but he was asked about the amount of children that were in his state that needed services. He had no idea. He didn't even know what the number of children were in his state. Kind of surprising. But that in 2017, the state spent $1 million on autism treatment. Okay. In 2024, they were spending $343 million. Now, how does it go from 1 million to 343 in 6 years? And he had no response. The guy looked like he was completely coming apart. Okay. It's an example of the fraud. And how do you come up with that kind of money? They borrowed it. There's a lot of it that was borrowed in these bonds. So what do you have happen when all the fraud gets exposed, when you realize that many state and local governments are over leveraged in programs they should have never been involved in because it was all going out through grift and graft. You're going to have a real awakening on the municipal level. And I think you could have a bit of a bond nightmare, to be honest, where nobody wants to touch them and everybody starts running for the hills away from these things because they don't see how these states are going to be able to pay it back or if they can pay it back when all the fraud's exposed. So municipal is a pretty scary area to be in right now. In terms of corporate bonds, that's all variable and it depends on the company. And and that's always ridden a bit of a roller coaster depending on how well those companies are managed and operated. So I don't have too much to say on that, but I do believe the big pending tsunami, if there is one, is in the municipal bond market particularly.
Yes, thank you. You're in good company. Again, Jamie Dimon said that aspect of the bond collapse that he's greatly concerned about will be unlike anything we've ever seen. Not that I'm a fan of Jamie Dimon, but the fact that he's saying it, adds to the issue. And of course, Juan O'Savin. A real quick comment on stock market. And again, I know it's a crystal ball question, but you know quite a bit about the intricacies of markets. You've got a lot of people, economists and analysts the world over, that are in a camp that says this thing's going to come down like a ton of bricks, and people need to be prepared. Then you have, and we've had, maybe almost 2,000, 1,500 point drop on the down the last week or so, but that's a blip really, and you look at it. But
right.
Then you have other people that say, hey, the stock market's going to 60,000, including Juan. Juan was like kind of flippant about it. He said, hey, I don't care if the Dow goes to 60,000. The elephant in the room, of course, is the dollar, which we'll talk about in a minute. But having stated that, you got some folks that say it's going through the roof, like Alex crammed into the moon, or it's going, down like the World Trade Center. Where do you stand on that issue?
I think what we're going to see generally, if you take a look at the Dow hit 50,000, the S&P hit 7,000 recently, both massive milestones in terms of overall activity. And of course, recently there's been a pullback, and that's due to war. Nobody likes war, and And anytime there's a military action, then that usually results in fact, you can almost see it. Go back in history and look at it. It always pulls back. That's just because people tend to run in fear of uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That being said, you don't take a country that has had commitments of $18 trillion to be invested in it in the last 12 months and think it's not going to do well. It's going to probably go higher. I don't think Juan's wrong. I think we could see 60. I don't think it's immediate. I think it's something that builds over time. However, remember the old adage, what goes up fast comes down faster? That can be a reality if people aren't careful. So you need to know what you're getting involved in. Of course, this is an investment advice to any of you, but you've got to do your homework.
Right.
And see what that is. What's happening right now is we're in this weird dynamic where blockchain is coming on pretty hot and heavy right now. And you have the legacy systems of like the Dow Jones, for instance, legacy system used to be all traded in paper. Now it's gone more digital over computer, but it's still being settled in the old system. And everyone wants better than that. So now they're all trying to push this tokenization, which we've heard is likely to come on board. So when you have even the head of the SEC saying, yeah, we expect the next 12 to 24 months for the entire stock market to be tokenized, I don't think he's making that up. Because once you tokenize that, you're now talking about settling trades in seconds, not days. And that kind of shift can really escalate a market rather quickly. So I realize that the answer is a little ambiguous, but what I want to say is there is still some turmoil. We're still taking out the rats in numerous countries right now. Yeah. So I'm expecting it to be a little bit turbulent, but probably build a little stronger over time. Hope that helps.
Yeah, it makes sense. Thank you. So we don't need to cover this. We've covered it before. And to our viewers, if you're a free subscriber at jmcbroadcasting.com, I think we publish it every Friday in our free email newsletter that goes out, compliments of Will Barney. And that is the 9 ISO compliant cryptos. And that just seems to be on the trajectory that it's on. And there's a lot of reasons to be looking into those because they're going to be part of the new system. I'm a big fan of XRP. Even though I've lost about half of what I put into it, I'm very happy because I believe that is going to be something quite interesting a little bit down the line. But what's your comment on Bitcoin? I'm just curious. I mean, it's
you've got
up and down,
Bitcoin and Ethereum are two of the largest rated cryptos that are out there. At least they have the highest value at the present moment. But if you look at Bitcoin's running, 67,000. I didn't look at it today, but it was 126 months ago. So what's happened?
That's a big move.
Right? Now, a lot of other cryptos have come down too. XRP has come down. XLM and many others have come down too. So it's not like you can say it's an isolated incident. However, the issue that I see with Bitcoin and even with Ethereum, having dealt with both of them, is that they're slow, they're cumbersome, they're difficult to settle with. I think the last time I did a Bitcoin transaction, it was 40 minutes to settle, and I did a XRP transaction that settled in 5 seconds. That's kind of not really a competition when you look at that. And you had Ripple just come out yesterday talking about Ripple payments and how they have the perfect scenario now for businesses, for enterprises to use their payment system and to be able to go in and out of fiat between blockchain and fiat at any given time, whenever you want to, and do it lightning fast with quick settlement. And when you see that happening, it tells you a couple of things. And that is, as we look at the dynamic, because we're, talking about the Great Reset. And by the way, everybody, you need to get this book. Get this book from John. Great book. Okay. Thank you, John. Awesome. Good information in
Thank
there.
you, Will.
So little plug for you. But as we look at this reset, I don't think it's going to be, everybody wants to just cut off the old system and we just launch into the new one and it's all going to be okay. But there's a problem with that strategy. And the strategy is that if you don't have a new system on board and have adoption going and have people getting there, you are going to, and you just cut the old system off, you end up with a bigger problem than you had before. You're going to have riots in the streets, everybody going crazy because they can't get to their bank account or et cetera. So what I think may end up happening is you're going to see an introduction of a new way of doing things, new currency from the Treasury, asset backed, and the two are going to exist side by side for a little while so people can see the difference, because some people are still waking
Yes.
up and they need to kind of see that old and new in front of them where they can make a decision. And I think they will be making a decision fairly rapidly. I do think it'll be fast adoption. Everybody that's awake, those are probably the major part of your audience. They're probably the early adopters, right? They're the ones that are in quick and fast and are going to be looking at that. But, just to end, and I realize this is kind of a long version of the answer to this, but to get back to Bitcoin, there's been two currencies that have been the predominant currency of trafficking around the world. I mean, talking about human trafficking. And Bitcoin is near the top. It isn't the top.
Wow.
Believe it or not, the top is actually US dollars, cash.
That I would expect. Yes.
So, and what I mean by US dollars, I'm meaning Federal Reserve notes, not, something issued by the country.
That's right.
So you'll see when we flip the switch on this and when we come up with an alternative to both of those, let's see what they look like at the end when the dust settles. Okay. Because I think it's going to be dramatic when people realize what's been going on.
Yes. They'll be able to see the huge contrast between the two. And it reminds me of the movie When Harry Met Sally. I'll have what she's having. I think a lot of people are going to say, I'd rather get into the new. So anyway, right. Let's put up this image of General that I came across on social media of General Flynn, and just chit chat about this for a minute. We've covered this extensively, but it's very important to continue to bring us to the surface. General Flynn put this out: shut the entire Federal Reserve System down. No longer allow it to, quote, fix our financial system. It's neither federal nor is it a reserve. It is obviously filled with elite globalists who believe they can adjust the U.S. financial system based on their own whims. They are not accountable to the American people at all, and yet control our money supply and system. No more. Shut it down. Thank you, General Flynn. Folks like me and Will, and certainly the legendary G. Edward Griffin have that narrative for decades. And thanks for coming aboard, General Flynn. We could use your little muscle there. So there it is. And this is an important issue. Hey, you know what? Perhaps at the next State of the Union, Will, maybe the president will drop this one in there the way he did the IRS. And I wouldn't put it past him. Or perhaps come the next State of the Union, he won't have to talk about it because it'll already have been done. But
it's already initiated. A brief comment, Will. Go ahead. Yeah. Well, when he says the income tax could go away or be eliminated, the IRS and income tax goes at the same time the Federal Reserve goes. They go together. They're a package.
Absolutely.
And they're a package in every country that's had a central bank and a tax system. So it's really fascinating. I actually 100% agree with everything General Flynn is saying here. I just want to say that first, okay? However,
absolutely,
I do think it's important that we provide a transition, if you will, a time when people can start moving away from this rather than just dropping them like a rock. And that's why I think you're going to see the new come up, and then people are going to start that. I think they're automatically going to do that transition over. It's, when email came out, it would have been ridiculous if suddenly all the post offices closed, right? That wouldn't make sense. Good
example. Yep.
So even in this case, there's going to be some time because people are going to be learning what this new system is. They're trying to gain some comfort level with it. I think it could last for a number of months. However, This kind of rhetoric, this kind of narrative is good because it prepares the minds of the people to let go of something that has been fraudulent, of something that has been controlling us and is not from our government. And I think that we need to get those messages into the consciousness of everyone in order for them to be ready to let go. So, my hat's off to General Flint. I think these statements have a place.
Absolutely. To our producer, let's put up the next image. This came out, I think, the day after or very shortly thereafter by Dan Scavino following the State of the Union address. As you said, the Federal Reserve and the income tax code go hand in glove. And here it is, time to abolish the IRS, folks. I mean, hurry up and get up to speed, because I can't take the continuous drip. I'm waiting for the flood, okay? Come on, folks. I mean, we're banging the drums on this, all right? All right, so
we really are. You got to keep one thing in mind, though, John, and I think just to give a little context to this. When everybody that's awake absolutely hates the movie, and everybody that's asleep hates it too, you probably struck a balance. Yep. Okay?
Yeah, we're getting there.
And the people asleep, they think it's all moving too fast. And the people awake think it's all taking too long, right? And somewhere in the middle, you probably struck a balance that psychologically you can bring everybody together on. And so, yeah, it's frustrating, but we're moving in that direction. And the interesting thing, if you watch President Trump, and he's done this over and over, just go back, letting people look at this. Go back and look at things he said. He comes out with very, shall we say, outrageous statements that really shock the world. He'll come out, oh, we should do this. And everybody's like, that's the craziest thing we've ever heard. And then he'll wait a week and then he'll say it again. Man, he's still crazy. He does all of this to shift psychologically, and he'll do it for weeks, sometimes months before he actually takes action. Why? Because he's trying to prepare your minds. Because if months go by, you've already gotten over the shock of it, and now you're ready to accept it. And so it's a psychological process that he's doing. And Dan is right by his side. Thank you, Dan.
Always 3 decades. Quick question, Will. I had reported back on this broadcast, perhaps you were a guest at the time, I don't recall. I know Bill Armour was. And we're going to talk about Bill Armour a little bit, folks. He was scheduled to join us today, but ran into some complications, unable to. I may do a special report with Bill this week. But I had mentioned the bill that was drafted last year that was supposedly going to go through the House and Senate and be voted on in February, as I recall, concerning 401ks. Where the president was made some sweeping change where we could put hard assets into 401ks like gold and silver, tangible, and other things, and some other favorable changes within the 401k structure. Have you caught any wind on the status of that bill? Or it was just been sidelines due to everything else?
It was actually one of the big drops that I featured last week after the State of the Union. And that was that he talked about the 401k system. He said 30% of workers don't have access to a 401k through their employer. And then he goes on to say, we're going to make it possible for them, and the government could contribute up to $1,000 a year. Matching. That was a pretty huge statement to make in the State of the Union. You mean everybody that starts a 401k that doesn't have one with their employer gets an extra $1,000 to start that? We heard a similar thing about the kids, the Trump accounts, remember? Oh yeah, we'll put $1,000 in there. This is all part of the reset. It's all part of what's coming.
Yes.
And you will have an opportunity. You could already with IRAs, you can do a gold-backed IRA or silver-backed IRA, but you can do metals.
Yes.
And we're going to see the same thing come to the 401ks. All this is about weaning us from the teat of the government. Trump is trying to get everybody to start taking personal responsibility for their own retirement, because what's going to happen down the road is there's not going to be Social Security. Now, if you need it, if you're already retired, you got it. Okay. It's not going away for you. But there's going to be an age in which they're going to say, nope, we're not doing it anymore. You got to plan for your own retirement. And all of this is in preparation for that.
Well, you know what? The number crunching people that are pretty pissed off, to use frank language, about Social Security, cost of living raises, blah, blah, blah. If you had your own money and instead of paying it to that three-letter organization that's going away soon, uh, you could have invested it on your own and done far better and created a 6 or 7 digit portfolio for yourself and gotten far bigger income than a $2,000-3,000 check from Social Security, plus the other repatriation of wealth. Hey, and to that point, to my audience, I've got retired Lieutenant Colonel Tom Lennox coming back with Rob Cunningham to jump all over the issues we've raised before, get any updates on, but the repatriation of wealth aspect. And would you concur, Will, that that's another reason, besides giving the power back to the people? Let us make our own decisions with our own equity and sweat of work, and take responsibility for our own wealth creation. Would you also concur that because of that repatriation of wealth that we've discussed before, that there'd be no need for Social Security? You've got far. Would you agree with that? I mean, there's going to be. They're doing
Yes,
a drip out now.
I
Here's $1,000 in your 401k. Here's a tax return coming this year. Imagine 3 years from now. Who needs a Social Security check? Am I right or am I
well,
crazy?
exactly. It's Social Security. You're going to look at that and go, well, that isn't anything. When the birth certificates were taken and traded, when they traded against people's lives, they made millions and millions of dollars per person.
That's right.
Okay, this wasn't a small
right.
amount, and I don't know how much is coming back. That's not been disclosed to me, but there is and should be something paid for what was done to people. And this was done all over the world. It wasn't just done here. It was done in many different countries, and it was wrong. They traded us on an exchange like cattle, right? We were just the
Exactly
chattel
right.
that they could bargain against our lives. If you ended up getting a degree or some higher status of life, then your value went up, and they could trade against you even harder. All this crazy stuff was going on.
Unbelievable.
And I know most people
What a
don't know
great
it's
movie.
there, but I appreciate you bringing attention to the topic.
Yeah, well, thanks for commenting on it. And I'll tell you what, film script writers, there's your dialogue. Take the sound bites that Will just said and turn that into a film script and get the best production crew, and you'll have a movie. You'll have a movie that'll really, really sell. Anyway, switching gears, the hour's coming up here. What is the current state, in your opinion, of the central banks, which we've covered before, the paper trading on the wrong side of the trade? Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan has just announced, I think you talked about it last time on the episode, a recommended 30% of portfolios now in gold and silver versus the standard recommendation that banks and Wall Street have said for decades, which was 5 to 15%. And of course, put it in paper, not the tangible. So big shift taking place here now. What is the status, an update, if you can provide for us, on the central bank implosion of the paper manipulation, which is affecting the wild swings, predominantly in silver, also in gold?
Well, what we saw an interesting thing occur over the last week, and let's talk about that because this gives you some context. Last week we were into the last week of February, coming into March, and what was interesting is you had all these future contracts coming due in March. As of a week ago today, there was about 239 million ounces that could stand for delivery. But then by Thursday, actually, there was a hold. The COMEX shuts down for an hour and a half. That was a week ago today. Okay. And then coming out of that, suddenly there were thousands of contracts that just disappeared on the system. Where'd they go? And then you saw 8,000 plus new contracts added on to May when the numbers come back up. So instead of facing a dilemma where there's all this demand for silver and there's only so much of it, because at the time there was only registered silver, this is what's available for delivery, registered amount was somewhere around 89 million ounces. Okay. Now, February delivered 25 million ounces of silver delivery, the highest ever. 25 million. In the last few days, as we started March, 50 million ounces have stood for delivery. There was only 89 in there.
Mm-hmm.
What is going to happen in May? All those contracts that got kicked in May, what's going to happen in May? We're facing a reality now in the midst of this, of an interesting phenomenon has. The war breaks out, attacks against Iran break out, okay, which occurred, the end of February, 1st of March, was right in that range, right? The attacks launch. And what was interesting is that shot up silver. Silver shoots up to $96 an ounce. And then Monday,
Yes,
they hit it with paper and it comes crashing back down, right? And went all the way down to 70 something, okay?
76.
So that
I
is
think.
not normal. If you looked at the chart over the last 5 years and you look at what's happened over the last 60 days, you'd be scratching your head going, say what? This doesn't make sense, because it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
None of this is normal. It's all manipulations. So while you have wealth management at Merrill Lynch and Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs and all these companies telling their customers,
Mm-hmm.
you better get 30% into metals, okay? And they're trying to do that. Guess who the two biggest banks that took delivery of that 50 million that I just talked about? Bank of America and JP Morgan. Who are their wealth clients and what are they doing with it? Okay. So while they're saying, oh, the price keeps going down, it's really not that great of an investment, they're scooping up all the physical they can get a hold of.
Of course.
And and everybody looking at the price this week, when they saw it was back in the 70s, they're like, oh, great, time to buy again. Because anybody that knows,
That's
hey,
right.
it's still a bargain. If we were at a ratio to gold that was a proper ratio, silver would be around $500, 10 to 1. Okay. But we're not in that land.
It's coming.
We're not in that land. But you can only kick the can so far. Eventually, you got to face the music. And we're headed for that.
Do you think the music begins to be faced in May, or doesn't seem like there's much wiggle room left beyond May based on the numbers of ounces and so forth you've been reporting? In your best guess, I mean, these criminals are pretty clever, and they can continue to manipulate for a bit longer. Do you think so? Or do you think May or June, the clutches of that control mechanism are off?
If you look at the registered inventories over the last 6 months, and even if we went shorter than that last 4 months, but let's just look at the last 6 months. Physical delivery has drawn down nearly 50% of what was there in the last 4 to 6 months. Yeah. Never in the last 80 years has that occurred.
Okay.
That kind of physical delivery.
Interesting.
So while the market's being manipulated with paper, they're still drawing down and drawing down. Like I said, February is usually a nothing month. Nothing happens in February because the contracts come due in March. It's usually a nothing month. And yet we have a 25 million ounce delivery month. Wow.
Yeah. How about that?
It tells you that there's a disconnect. The paper is fake and the real is still playing the game. That's what it tells you.
That's right. Again, I'll have what she's having. Let's play the real game, folks. To your point of the fluctuations, it was at perhaps $90-something an ounce, and in the course of 10 days, it's dropped as low as 76. I think it closed your close of business yesterday or today about $84 an ounce. That's kind of where it sits right now. Let's briefly discuss the U.S. dollar. I would expect there to be, again, not normal occurrences and large swings. We see this in the dollar. I look at the dollar index pretty regularly. It was about 94 at one point. Then it was hovering a week or two ago at 96, and yesterday was 99. Why the fluctuation of the dollar as it relates to these contracts and the gold? What's fluctuating the dollar right now? Because we know ultimately, at least we speculate, it's going down pretty hard down the line. And as we get out of that,
it's looking that way, but it's not behaving. It's not been behaving in the big dive that everybody was thinking. The big dive is when you realize that everything fiat is fake. Okay.
Yes.
And it's not, but I don't think you're going to really see that until you have something that's real. When you have a currency
Right.
delivered to you that's real and backed by assets, then you'll see that value really drop off. But in the meantime,
Interesting.
the whole world's looking at this, and a lot of people have been pulling out. You made a comment about people are getting rid of treasuries. They're dumping U.S. treasuries. Why are they doing this? There's a couple of reasons why, and it's not the reasons you think, but the primary reason is all these countries are prepping. Those that know, they're prepping for when their currency has enough value to go head to head. In the meantime, they're doing a measured withdrawal. Okay. At the same time, they're seeing the U.S. stand as an absolute military powerhouse at the current moment, and they're thinking, we don't want to bet against that. Not very hard. Nope, not going to do that. So let's see how this plays. So I think what you're seeing is the dollar is going to play a little bit of this up and down movement. Trump would like it to be generally a little lower than it was a year ago, but that's because we're trying to get manufacturing going. And if our dollar is lower, people can afford our goods, right? It's all about being able to ship out of the country. So when your dollar's lower, everyone can. So really, we're trying to come to an equilibrium over time and do this kind of carefully, because fast gyrations shock the markets and they shock everybody. Yes. And so I think what you're watching is more of a controlled demolition, if you could put it that way, where they're trying to control the pace so that it aligns with what's coming, which is new assets. Now, I do think by April, we'll have the Clarity Act passed, which will put law and order, put some protections around the new financial system. And that's going to prepare the way for a new currency. When that comes online, then we're going to really see the separation occur. Right now, we're seeing some separation with gold and silver paper, paper and physical. It's pulling apart. You're going to see that really, really escalate as we get into the next 60 days, I'll call it, because the reality is going to start sinking in that there's only one thing that still has value when a new currency comes in, and it's going to be the one thing that's backing that currency. So you're not going to see any let up to people grabbing physical. They're going to grab physical. They're going to keep going after it because they're going to want to get through the turbulence of what is the transition.
Yes, thank you. Will, I'd like to, very helpful. Thank you very much for all the information you shared with us in this hour. I want to conclude. For those that are just coming aboard, because we have I'd say a loyal following that follows our broadcasting, and thank you all very much for doing so. And you know what? Action changes things, folks. Get ahead of it. I mean, Will's just pretty much dumped out all the information to connect the dots for us all. Be ahead of it. Don't be on the wrong side of it. So, but for those that are just joining us, a lot of new folks come in every week as well. Please talk briefly about what you and your team are developing over at enochgs.com. And are there any particular updates or progress reports or things you can report to us from a couple of weeks ago when you commented on what you're developing? So close us out with that.
What we're doing is we're building out a software and hardware solution. It's primarily designed to be a system to incubate, to launch, and then to manage projects over the long haul, basically businesses. So it's designed to run businesses. And we're doing that as a foundation because we'd like to see projects launched for humanitarian reasons for the next 50 plus years. And we realized early on that we couldn't really affect the change that we wanted to see if we didn't have a system to somehow manage this and properly run it. So when we looked at all of the options, and there's a lot of options, out there for running your business. You can go to SAP or Microsoft or Oracle or whatever, and you can pick one.
Yeah.
Our problem is none of them had what we were looking for. They all had great functionality. None of them had safety. They didn't have the safety and security we were looking for. We wanted people to feel safe with their company's information. The internet is so loose right now. It is cyber attacks are going on continually, but most importantly, they're taking your information imperceptibly. That's the worst part, because that gets used in corporate espionage and other things, okay, against you. So, because of all these reasons, we decided that the only way we could really build something that met the foundational requirements we wanted is if we built it, right? Because we weren't going to find it. We looked, and we actually interviewed and did all kinds of demos and everything with these companies. So we put together a team of people that's working to build this out. It's a unique language. It's not a language you typically write software in, and that's on purpose because we don't want it to be infiltrated. So it's a big project. We actually think the first 18, 24 months is going to be pretty heavy development cycle because of that. But then once that's reached a level of proficiency, then it goes to other countries rather rapidly. And now we really start doing things. So it is an infrastructure project. It's a digital infrastructure project. It is expensive and intensive, as anybody that's engaged in one of these knows. Look at some of the AI projects out there. We're probably small compared to some of their big numbers, but nevertheless, this is still, for us, a sizable project. And the whole goal is we want to see the world blessed with these kind of projects that are actually changing it for the good versus what we've been living through, which is destroying it for us, okay? So we have a lot of work to do in terms of rebuilding this world, and it takes everybody working at it in all their different countries together to make a difference. So we're trying to just provide tools and resources to make that happen. So later this month, you'll probably see portal open up on the website where we'll be able to actually start intaking some projects and helping people in a way to get their business plans together if they don't have them, and start getting prepped for what would be a funding delivery.
That's exciting. It's coming up pretty soon. Congratulations, and we'll be following that as you appear here every other week. Is there a mechanism or a place, in addition to EnochGS.com, that people can follow you beyond this broadcast or reach out to you in any way, shape, or form?
They can find us. You can find us on YouTube, and on we're also YouTube, Rumble, Truth Social, and X.com. So those are the primary channels where you can find us. Look for Enoch Global Services. You'll see us there. It's EnochGS.com is the website, and on Rumble, I think it's also EnochGS. I believe it's spelled out on YouTube, Enoch Global Services. X.com is Enoch-GS, I think, something like that. But if you just do a search, it'll pop up there, and you can follow us on those channels, keep up with what we're doing. We'll try to put our updates there. So on the website, as well as all the other channels, and delivering as much information as we can to everybody. We hope to have within the next 30 days some templates that people can use to kind of help them formulate their project in a way that's going to be better for them and better that they can present to others. And of course, information that we would need to assist them with getting launched. So we do expect to get that out fairly soon.
Excellent. Well, as always, Will Barney, phenomenal guest, great contributor to this network. I appreciate you very much. Look forward to you coming back week after next. And let's see, something else I wanted to bring up before I sign you off. And of course, as usual, it slipped my mind. But anyway, great information. Yeah, here's what I was going to say. By the time you get back here in 2 weeks, the whole world would have shifted in so many different areas in so many different ways. It's like, folks, the reason our show is getting popular, we have over 10 million collective views from the, I think, 9 or 10 shows we publish collectively at JMC Broadcasting in the course of a month. One reason is because we're living in a soap opera, if you will. I'm I understand the enormity and all the problems, folks, believe me, but an oversimplification, it's like a soap opera and you want to see what's going to happen next week with this character or this piece over here and that piece over here. And the great guests I have, like Will Barney, do a darn good job at connecting those dots. So come back and watch the show. It is a show, and you're a part of it. In fact, we're the stars of it. So come join us soon. God bless you, Will Barney. Stay safe. Thank you very much.
Thanks, John,
to
for
my
having
producer,
me. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
You bet. Thank you, Will. We didn't have Bill Armour, but to my producer, let's put up an image if we have of Bill Armour. I want to put this out there because it's very important. Will Barney touched on a lot of aspects of many different things. But when it comes to the gold and silver story, it was pretty well laid out what's really going on behind the scenes as to why the numbers are going up and down and what we can expect down the line. And we've beaten this to a pulp for the last year on this broadcast, and pretty much everything we've said is coming out to be. So this is an action statement. If you would like a free consultation with my resource, give this gentleman a call. He'll be back, I'm not sure, probably 2 weeks from now on this broadcast. 310, you see it on the screen, 407-0239. His name is Bill Armour. Just to mention my name with this show, and you will be fast-tracked. That number goes straight to his desk, so if he's not there, do leave a voicemail. He'll check it and get back to you. So free consult, understand gold and silver, understand I always say buy gold, buy silver, buy now, but buyer beware. It's a buyer beware market because it's an unregulated industry. I'm not a big fan of lots of regulation, but you got to have some. And there's virtually none other than RICO laws and, abiding to some IRS codes when it comes to the IRAs and reportability or what's not reported because the IRS doesn't even care, believe it or not. But anyway, get your consult with Bill Armour, 310-407-0239. Buy gold, buy silver, buy now. And I think Will Barney laid out a lot of cause to do that. All right. So before we wrap up this broadcast, we have a great guest sitting in the digital green room. Another aspect of action will be covered here. But before we get into the action, you have a lot of people right now with concerns for safety, for guarantees, as Will Barney's trying to bring into his platform. And a lot of folks, particularly those preparing and definitely those in retirement, the concern is guarantees and income. So here to discuss this is retirement planning specialist Brandon Clarke, returning back to this broadcast. For those that don't know, Brandon Clarke focuses on retirement planning and is the founder of Triad Retire LLC. His website's up there. Well, it'll be up there in a moment. He has dedicated the majority of the last 15 years to serving his clients' insurance and financial needs. This is the component of get out of the system that I talk about at wealthcoachuniversity.com in those 10 free modules. This is a component, the safety component, the income component. And it's very, very important, which is why there's, I don't know how many, but well over $1 trillion invested in these products. So Triad Retire is committed to helping clients find the most effective means to establish both their living and lasting legacies nationwide. I can tell you the greatest concern among retirees today is outliving their income and maintaining their lifestyle. And for those that have worked all these years and have been blessed and fortunate enough to put together a portfolio, now they know retirement's coming for them in a year, 2 or 3 years. This is a very critical stage. If you take a big hit and lose all that money, you don't have the years to make it back. And you're looking for what? Believe me, what people are looking for in retirement is income, and ideally tax-free income, and that can be done as well. So let's bring back our guest, Brandon Clarke from North Carolina. Welcome back, sir.
Glad to be here. How are you? How are you tonight?
I'm good. Good for you tonight. For me, it's the morning. I'll be getting some breakfast after this broadcast. But thanks for being here. We see triadretire.com. That's the website you want to bookmark and visit. But let me get into this. People run to bonds to take out the volatility of a stock portfolio. I mean, that's pretty much a standard model. But this may or may not be the only solution, especially with some of the concerns in the bond market that Will Barney just spoke of. So last week, you and I, Brandon, discussed 5 different types of annuities. For those that missed the broadcast, everything's archived on our Rumble channel And the most current 4 episodes are archived at jmcbroadcasting.com. You can go back and listen to it. And it's important for those where this subject matter is perking your ears. But what I'd like to do today, Brandon, is for you to highlight one of those 5 types of annuities. I want to spend some time on the fixed indexed annuity, if that's what it's called these days, in this segment. But before we do, what are some of the overall generic benefits and main reasons that people invest in annuities? Let me pause there, and I got a few follow-up questions. What are the overall main benefits? Why are people looking for annuities? What do they get at it? What's the benefit for them?
Well, guaranteed income is by far, I would say, the number one most important reason. Uh, these annuities have been around since the Roman times. They are
Mm-hmm.
simple, and just think, you've built up a portfolio, you have worked hard, you have thought about what are my gains going to be over all these years of time to build it up in an account, and we're able to take that account and we can do an immediate, we can do, after 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, based on your timeline we can start an income stream from that will never end. So I would say first and foremost, going over someone's income planning, expenses, what they need, because if you have your fixed expenses covered, then you don't have to worry about moving money around. Like, is gold going to go up, down? Should I sell it at this time for the income? Things like that. How are bonds going to do up and down? You don't have to worry about that if you have that income
That's
stream
right.
coming in that hits your bank account the first of every month. I do meet with a lot of clients that have Social Security, have income already covered. So that is where guaranteed growth. We put it
Mm-hmm.
into an account with a fixed indexed annuity. It cannot lose. It may have a cap or a participation rate where you're not going to get the full market gains, but you cannot lose if we have a downturn. So you don't have to make up that multiple to get back to zero. And then we also help people with Roth conversions. You mentioned it a second ago about how people can get tax-free income if we can get the money
Mm-hmm.
into a Roth IRA and then do a guaranteed income annuity. You're going to get, that income stream tax-free for life.
That's as good as it gets. And look, the devil's in the details, folks. Again, we don't give specific investment advice on this broadcast. However, great education information. We're going to dive a little bit deeper in a minute. But because every case, as you well know, Brandon, is very different. Everyone's life is different. Their age, their income tax bracket, their family longevity, their lifestyle, and so forth and so on, and what amount of assets they have to work with and where they presently are. It's an art and a science, folks. And that's why Brandon's a retirement planning. Here's a simplified analogy. I'll use health as the example. If somebody has a heart attack, um, chances are pretty good they're not going to go to the general practitioner doctor to be serviced. They're going to go to what? A specialist, because it's an area that is highly specialized, a cardiologist, okay, and do the follow-up treatments and various things to maintain good health. And so it's the same thing, making the metaphor with health now to wealth. Um, you know, Stockbrokers, they have their niche. They're managing a stock portfolio in stocks and bonds to reach growth and different objectives there. But if you're close to retirement, and certainly in retirement, that is a highly specialized area. You don't want a stockbroker or a general practitioner. You want somebody who understands and lives and breathes in that space. And that's why I bring Brandon to the table here for you, because that's what he does. I like, Brandon, if you can, break down a little bit of the chassis, I'll call it, of a fixed indexed annuity, because you just said something a moment ago. They can get some gains, lock them in, and have guarantees. Give us all the pros, give us the restrictions, and give us the restrictions and the pros to such a great statement that you made. No downside risk, guarantees, market goes up, you get to grab some of it. If market tanks next year, you don't lose what you've grabbed. Break that down a little bit for us. And are there growth buckets? Are there income buckets? And how does that specifically work? uh, I don't want it to make it sound like it's too good to be true. You don't get all the returns. I mean, because the insurance company's got to make money. So disclose all that for the folks, because you're working. Yes, you represent and I know you're independent. You represent a lot of insurance companies, so you can get the best. But the truth is, you have your client's best interest in mind. So tell them everything they need to know about this chassis.
Yeah, so a fixed indexed annuity, I would say for growth, is a simpler product, I would say. It basically has just one bucket where the money goes in. You may get a upfront bonus added to the funds, but it just grows annually and it gets interest credited based on the index return. So at the end of each year, it gets credited interest. It cannot go down from that point. It's a stair-step approach. It's always going up a stair every year, and it can't go back down. If we have a negative 20% year like 2022, you're not going to lose money. Sometimes some of the indexes will have a 1% guarantee or a portion where you get addition added regardless as well. When I do fixed indexed annuities for income, it adds a second bucket to the annuity. Because what that does is it has the growth component that will continue to grow the money, but it also adds a guaranteed lifetime income rider. With the rider, the average fixed indexed annuity has a 1% rider fee that's internally within the fixed indexed annuity. And when I run software, I have a case design assistant. He runs about 40 companies. And so we want to give the client whichever company is paying the highest income for life. That may be different based on someone's age, where they live, if they want to defer 1 year, if they want to defer 5 years. Different companies have different specialties. But you are right when you say, I mean, these companies, that is their bread and butter. They design the products to have the highest income. So when you have an income annuity, you have a bucket that is to generate the income. Usually, it will have an income bonus, and then it will have a guaranteed 8% roll up annually, for example. And so when I meet with someone, if they say they have a certain amount of money in an IRA or Roth IRA or savings that they want to put into an income stream, I'm able to tell them, if you defer 1 year, this is how much you get. If you defer 3 years, 5 years, we know all the numbers up front. There's no guessing. It's going to pay out based on future market returns. It's all known up front. The income part. Now, the growth within the fixed indexed annuity grows based on the index choices that are chose, and that is based on how the market grows in the future. But the income side is really the most important reason people do this. There was a study recently that said a healthy couple that is 65 has a 25% chance of one of those persons living into their 90s. So if you have that guaranteed income stream that cannot end, then you know it's not going to end. You eliminate longevity risk from occurring and you running out of money and only being on Social Security, if that's even around 25 years from now. That's another story. But the main thing is, and there's also been studies showing people with multiple guaranteed income streams have lower stress, have more peace of mind, and they live longer. So.
Absolutely. Such great content there. Thank you very much. And the final words are really important, folks. Peace of mind. This is the stability factor in the uncertainties of everything else. And so it takes a team. It takes a team to put together, and a team of like-minded people who understand public policy, understand this global financial reset. And that's why I put together the Goots model, which can be found, folks, at wealthcoachuniversity.com. One of the modules is a free video educational modules. One of them speaks specifically to annuities. And I really redo it and perhaps solicit your services, Brandon, and replace what I put there or add to it, because you can add far more information than I was able to that model. But Brandon's going to be visiting us at least monthly, maybe twice a month on this broadcast to reveal the world of information that's available. Now, you mentioned a few moments ago, you have, for lack of a better word, I can't recall, an assistant, a part of your team that does case design. Does this mean that you can run, like you were talking about, the different components within the fixed indexed annuity? You can run an illustration that can show the folks based on guaranteed and then presumed growth rates and so forth of what that looks like till age 100, right? To take some of the uncertainty out of it. Is that part of a service that you can provide?
Yes, that's correct. So anyone that I meet with, there's probably been a couple of people listening here that we've met already. They know that I am a big component of having different buckets. So that is why me and John gel well together, because I am a big component of having growth areas, having gold, silver, having things outside of the annuity. But anytime
Mhm.
someone does meet with me, we go over their ages, their total assets, because we want this to be a portion of their assets that are used for really the foundation, the stability of their retirement plan. I want people to have money in assets that are growing and beating inflation and continuing to rise.
Mhm.
And you're able to do that just succinctly and very easily if your expenses each month that you have, your mortgage, your rent, if you even have those, car payments, things like that, are just covered by a payment that comes in, just like when you were working your job or business prior to retiring. So everyone that
Mhm.
yes that meets with me, we have the individual companies we go to. We get an illustration. I'll send a screenshot of the exact income numbers. They all of the income annuities that I do that are guaranteed for either a single life, or if it's a married couple, it's a joint life. It pays out until the second spouse passes. They do pay out until, if the person lives to 120. If you live that long, they will
Nice.
continue to pay out.
Well, the med beds that are coming are going to end up. I hope the insurance companies factor that in, because we may be living to 100 and 120 down the line. But that is very encouraging, and you can't get that anywhere else. You really can't. You
Well,
can't get that level of guarantee anywhere except a strong insurance company.
and I'll
You're
just
going to say
say
something?
just one example that I ran today. For someone that is looking for immediate income off a joint. This was a couple that 70 and 65, joint income, say 100,000. It's going to pay a guaranteed 8% for life out to you immediately. So if someone does a 1 year deferral, if they defer longer, they're going to get a higher percentage. But a lot of times we hear, the 4% rule. If we can generate a guaranteed 8+% to you, cannot end um, off of a premium that you never have to worry about running out. The reason they do the 4% rule is because if you live 30 years, there's a chance of it running out with downturns, losses,
Yeah.
not sustained growth. But this is an 8% plus that cannot end and continues to pay regardless, and is not based on future returns. So that's just a great story to tell, to put as a foundation for your income to use.
You know, that statement, that soundbite, that segment, I hope we turn that into a sizzle reel. I'll tell you why, because that should be on the front of the Wall Street Journal. And of course, it's not, and we know why. And that's the reason why you want to contact Brandon Clarke and learn more about this. And I will say, we're going to save this for perhaps the next episode you join us in, but I want to, seed it out there right now. Uh, as we wrap up our segment here, a couple of things. One, as Brandon mentioned, you can direct IRA money or non-IRA money into annuities. And the statement you just made is so important. Folks that have uncertainty, maybe you've got a sizable IRA, or whatever it's worth, it's important to you. And you're about to withdraw income down the line. Well, you don't want to lose that value between now and then, or you're already taking minimum distributions. You're above 72 of age. You can roll tax-free from wherever it is into an annuity. And before you do that, of course, have the consults, make sure it's in your best interest, and take a look at the illustrations that Brandon just talked about. But this is really important, folks, because in the Get Out of the System Goots model at wealthcoachuniversity.com, we have gold and silver as the component as a hedge, not as an investment, certainly not as an income producing asset, but as a hedge against all the elements that Will Barney and I discussed. We have the crypto element, we have cash, and caution you there because safe havens for cash in some of those banks aren't very safe. That's a component in Goots. And the other one, of course, is the annuity space for the guarantees. So I'll close this out and then have you make a last statement. Those, I don't know, 1, 2, 3 years down the retirement, and I talk to people like that, they've built this nest egg and they say, well, we plan on, unplugging the business or retiring in 3 years. This spot is very important. With all the things going on, you don't want to make a mistake there. So that's a candidate for an annuity. And the other potential candidate for an annuity, certainly are those in retirement. Reshuffle your deck around. Just in stocks and bonds, hey, you feel good about that and it's working for you? Great. Let's hope it continues to. If it doesn't, bring some guarantee into the portfolio because we are living longer. I don't know statistically anymore if we are with what happened with the pandemic, sadly and horrifically and unfortunately, but I do know med beds are real. My good friend, Dr. Joseph Peck of Empower 2000, the masterclass expert that I partnered up with for my masterclass that we did a few months ago, he's been in a med bed. So they're coming, folks, and we're going to live longer and longer. So don't outlive your income. That's very, very important, I can tell you. So Brandon, any closing comments and the best way for people to reach you for a free non-obligation consult and analysis?
Yeah, I mean, we cannot predict the future. Obviously, we talk about different topics and economic wise here, but we are in an environment where interest rates are probably going to get lowered as we go through this year more, unless there's inflation shock or some reason. Guaranteed income annuities are heavily, influenced by the federal funds rate, by the 10-year treasury. So when those are higher, the payout ratios are higher. So if you lock in one now before Kevin Morse gets in and lowers interest rates to 1%, if he does, then you're going to get a better guaranteed payout for life. If you do one after that, the rates will be lower because that bases what the insurance companies can invest on their side. So it's all tied in together. And that's how they've been around. I've worked with a couple companies that have been around for 175 years. They don't stay around that long because of they're investing in long-term, investments. So just wanted to say that with the way the landscape is going. Now, yes, my main site is triadretire.com. Go there. Wealthcoachuniversity.com are the two main areas. And I'm happy to help anyone with a no-cost consultation and go over an example. And then you decide if it fits for you, but you're going to get all the education and information up front.
Thank you, Brandon. I took some notes. What I'd like to tackle next time you're on are those that already own annuities, and maybe they've had them for some years and they're no longer suitable, or the company isn't as strong as it once was, or through innovation and competition, there are better products out there. I'm aware of the IRS code, Section 1035A is the code that allows people to transfer one annuity for another annuity and not have to incur any tax coming across that pathway. Now, it has to be in their best interest, and that's where your expertise comes in. We're going to touch on that in great detail next episode, as well as the safety mechanisms, the pecking order of safety that is there between the insurance regulators, state by state, between the State Guarantee Association pool, between the strength of the insurance companies. You just stated, companies that have been through it all for 100 years, 175 years, got A ratings from more than one agency. We're going to go over that pecking order and the 1035 exchange for those with who currently own annuities. And we're going to continue to delve into the annuity space, all 5 different types, and everything everybody needs to know about this, because I think it's an important component, not for everyone, but for a lot of people in the get out of the system model. So thank you very much, Brandon Clarke, for your expertise, your knowledge, and for giving free consults to those listening to this broadcast. You can reach Brandon. What's the best phone number to reach you at? Is there a phone number you can publish here?
Yeah, hold on one second. Let me get that for you. And can I make just one
Sure.
statement about like, so if someone has a current annuity, annuities are
Hmm.
usually a 5 year, 10 year terms to them. Now, a guaranteed income
Hmm.
annuity is set, and we don't want to change that for life. But if it's just a growth annuity, or
Hmm.
if it's past that 10 year term frame, then there's a very, very good chance that you can upgrade because they're set to allow you for growth during that term. So,
Hmm.
obviously, we would make sure it's in your best interest. We're going to look at, if there's a reason not to do it. But if you have an annuity that's 10 years old, 15 years old, 20 years old, there's probably a better growth mechanism out there now. The best phone number is 336-265-7263.
Thank you, Brandon Clarke, and to my producer, who's always live, making the magic of these shows happen, which we appreciate very much. Take a mental note or note on a piece of paper. Let's get that phone number added to the lower thirds for the future broadcasts, so people can jot it down throughout the program. Thank you very much, Brandon. Look forward to seeing you back here in 2 weeks, I believe. Thanks for everything you do to help the viewers of this broadcast that reach out to you. I have all the confidence in the world in your skill set. So thank you very much. I'm going to be right back with 4 specific action items to get out of the system right after this important global defense war announcement.
Join JMC Broadcasting's monthly Global Defense War Military Panel. JMC hosts an esteemed panel of military experts, including Ricardo Bosi, Tom Lennox, Chuck Sellers, Michael Jaco, Derek Johnson, Brad Wozny, and other military guests. Join us each month, where this panel of esteemed guests analyze the current events across a broad spectrum of topics, addressing the questions and concerns that you have. Subscribe for free by visiting jmcbroadcasting.com. John looks forward to seeing you at the next episode of the Global Defense War Military Panel broadcast, right here on jmcbroadcasting.com.
All right. Probably got a 3 or 4 minute wrap up here, maybe 5 minutes, but very important. Action changes things. I always said saving America and protecting your wealth is not a spectator sport. It requires action. So what we do in this broadcast every week is we load up content, get questions addressed that I address on your behalf to these valuable guests, and keep us up to date as the saga continues of this global financial reset. And so the second part of this is action. So to my producer, if you can, pull up the image of Bill Armour again, and I'm gonna give you 4 or 5 action items, and then close out with a very important announcement regarding Tom Lennox in just a moment. Here he is, Bill Armour, 310-407-0239. Action items. Number 1, free consult with Bill Armour. Learn about gold and silver. We've set the case why. I think anyone who's half awake on planet Earth understands gold and silver is the big story. Don't be on the wrong side of history. The time for action is now. Give Bill a call. Second action item, of course, is Brandon Clarke for the reasons we have just stated. And please reach out to Brandon on that aspect of the Goots get out of the system model. There he is. And of course, for those with humanitarian projects and big company needs, while it's a work in progress, continue to follow the work of Will Barney. There's a third action item. And a fourth action item is me. I can only do 8 appointments a month and pretty much maxed out, but you can get into the rotation pretty quickly with a week or 2 delay, and by visiting wealthcoachuniversity.com. And if you want to know about why I can be a wealth coach, well, I used to be a financial advisor. My biography can be read, which that's a sliver of it, but my journey in this freedom movement and as a recovering financial advisor, you can read my biography by visiting jamesbroadcasting.com. Click on my name on the nav bar, and a summary of my last 30 years in this movement is there, including my 12 years as a financial advisor. I can't give investment advice. I do not sell investment products or manage money for a fee. I do not sell gold and silver. What I do is act as a consultant, a coach, and we talk on Zoom privately, you and I, specific to your situation. And I provide consulting and coaching and open up the resource network for you to help you get from where you are to where you need to be to get out of the system, survive and thrive this global financial reset, and be on the right side of history. We know we have a lot of great benefits coming to us when the IRS and the Federal Reserve go away soon. Well, you know we have great benefits coming to us in the form of tax returns, because that was told to us by Scott Bessent and President Trump. And we know we have a little bit down the line, I don't know when, I'm going to guess and say 2027, 2028. We'll discuss this next episode with our guests, and that is the repatriation of wealth that's being assigned to us from the millions of dollars that have been traded against your life's energy, which Will, Barney, and I touched on before. So those are your action items. Visit, if you want to schedule a consult with me, the mechanism to do that is wealthcoachuniversity.com. It's a clean and easy website. It's a no-brainer. I look forward to meeting you privately on a Zoom conference. So those are your action items. Let's talk about next week. I'm very excited for all the broadcasts here. Oh, well, hold on. Thank you for bringing that up. Derek Johnson, mark your calendars, March 26th, all new Patriot Q&A Power Hour. Derek Johnson and I, as your host, will answer your questions for one solid hour in this private setting. So learn about that by visiting jamesbroadcasting.com. Click on Premium Portal and learn how to join us. You want to get your questions. Derek Johnson has a photogenic mind. I mean, this guy knows his business. His presidential executive administrative documents, the executive orders, the law of our manual updates, and how they relate to current events, which you have questions about. Get your questions answered. Join us. And so let's take a look at next week's guests. Rob Cunningham and retired Lieutenant Colonel Tom Lennox. I can't wait to bring these two gentlemen together. They'll each have their segment spot, and then we'll do a roundtable like we do with Will and Bill. We had, I don't know, almost 2 million collective views that we know of on a 57-second soundbite sizzle reel that Lieutenant Colonel Tom Lennox stated concerning the birth certificate trading and the repatriation of wealth. These two gentlemen, both military, retired military, and up to speed on what's happening today. We're going to have an incredible show next week. Don't miss it. Rob Cunningham and retired Lieutenant Colonel Tom Lennox. I want to thank you all. If you're still listening to me, you must like our broadcast, and I greatly respect, have gratitude and appreciate that, because I do all this for your benefit and ours. So thank you all very much, because where we go one, we go all. We'll see you next week. And don't forget to follow all the rest of our programming. Look at our programming guide. It's like a TV guide right on the homepage of jmcbroadcasting.com. Stay safe, everyone, and may God be with you.
Module 2 is the cornerstone of content in the Wealth Coach University. In this module, you will learn just how to goots, get out of the system, resulting in the confidence you need to protect and preserve your financial assets through this transition. This is the danger zone. The cost of inaction or wrong action may be the regret of a lifetime.
What an exciting time to be alive. The dawning of the golden age is upon us. Goots, G-O-O-T-S, get out of the system now. Action on your behalf is required. Be on the right side of history. Please visit all 10 free modules at wealthcoachuniversity.com and schedule your private one-on-one wealth coach consult with me, John Michael Chambers. I look forward to meeting with you. It's time.